How is everyone doing today? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. First, I just wanted to wish everyone a very happy Father's Day. I hope everyone is having a great time, whatever it is you're doing on this particular weekend. One cool thing, I'm actually a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and they're actually had back in theaters the Lord of the Rings, but they had the extended editions, and the extended editions are so much better than the regular ones. And so that was one of the things that I was doing with my son this weekend. Was we went to saw the Fellowship last night, and maybe seeing if we could see some of the other ones the next couple of days. But absolutely fantastic. If you hadn't had a chance to check that out, or if you've never seen those movies on the big screen, it's so worth it. So like I said, hope everybody has a wonderful Father's Day out there. So what I wanted to talk about in this episode real quick was the FDIC just released their state profile, but they did for the first quarter of 2024, and they released this report on a quarterly basis. I'm going to bring this in real quick. So this is the FDIC's website, and I will put a link to this down below in the description. But what is really neat about this is, so I'll read this real quick. So the FDIC state profiles is a quarterly summary of banking and economic conditions in each state. To retrieve a state profile, select a state from either the map or list below. All media inquiries, should be directed to the FDIC, yada, yada, yada. But anyway, so when you're on here, you just basically you go to your state, and I'll do PA because I'm in Pennsylvania. So you just click on that, and we'll just give this a second, and the state profile will pop up. And the reason why I love these is it's one page. It's one page. It just goes down, and it has a great little, just kind of encapsulates everything. And if you look at it, like, in other words, let's go down just the list real quick. So you have, employment growth rates. Then we get into banking trends, which are basically like general information, and then asset quality, capital earnings, liquidity sensitivity, and then loan concentrations. And then we just get a banking profile at the bottom, which is like largest deposit markets, institutions in the market, asset distribution, and the number of institutions. So it's almost set up from like a Camels standpoint. If you know what Camels is and you understand how the Camels breaks down, and I will do a whole nother episode on Camels. I've been waiting to do that because I'm going to kind of tie it in with some other things on, banking books and bank strategy and some other things to look at in regards to Camels. But it really kind of sets up almost like a quasi quick like Camels synopsis. So I just love it. So here you could see we've got, first quarter 2024, then we go last, couple quarters here, 23, and then we get full year 2023, full year 2022. So you can just kind of see here, like manufacturing dipped a little bit, other non-manufacturing good producers dipped a little bit, but, private sector, private service providing up a little bit, government doing good, and then the unemployment rate sitting at 3.4% right now in Pennsylvania. And then other indicators. So we got single family home permits up 10.2%. It's good. Multifamily building permits, 4.6%. Home price index up 7%. And then when we get down here, so we could see the total number of banks right now in Pennsylvania is 122 banks. Total assets, $313 billion in total assets in the state. And then we get into asset quality, and we can see the asset quality is actually pretty good. Past due non-accrual loans only 0.84%, non-current loans 0.43%, loan and lease allowance 0.98%, loan and lease allowance non-current loans 2.01%. But here's the interesting thing about that. If we look at the other trends, you could see from the third quarter, it was at 2.66 and it's dropped down to 2.01. So that's pretty good. Net loan losses, 0. So again, pretty good. And for anybody who doesn't understand, like if you're like past due non-accrual loans, if you're under 1, as a rule of thumb, like you're doing pretty good. And then we can see here, tier 1 leveraged, capital and earnings. Tier 1 leverage capital is at 10.1%. Good. Return on assets 0.67%. That's a little low. Pre-tax return on assets 0.83. Net interest margin 2.94. But if you look at the net interest margin, one of the questions is like, our margins getting squeezed? So we could see here a couple quarters ago, we were at 3.11. In 2022, we're at 3.2. And now we've dropped down to like 2.94. So the margin is compressing a little bit here. Yield on earning assets, 4.97, pretty good. Cost of funding earnings, 2.13. You could see the cost of funding is going. Oh, look at where it was in 2022. It was at 0.47, and now we're up to 2.13. So you can see that cost of funding has really gone up with the rise in interest rates. Provisions to average assets is just 0.02. Non-interest income to average assets, 0.38. That's remained basically relatively even. Overhead to average assets, 2.39. That's remained pretty stable. And then we get down here into liquidity. Net loans to assets, 70%. Non-core funding to assets, 13%. Long-term assets to assets, 43. Broker deposits number, and this is a number of institutions that are using broker deposits. That's 58 out of, what do we say, 122. So 58 institutions in PA are utilizing broker deposits out of 122. Broker deposits to assets as a percentage, only 4%. It's very low. So I think a lot more banks could utilize broker deposits and utilize more broker deposits. Like, I don't think if you take that up to 8 or maybe even 10%, it's such a bad thing. Loan concentrations, commercial. Here we go. Commercial and industrial, what's also known as C&I, and then commercial real estate. 234%. 42 as a percent. And this is a median percentage of tier 1 capital plus the reserve for loan and lease losses. But you can see here, non-resident, multifamily construction and development, 19, non-residential real estate, 175, residential real estate, 231, consumer is 5, and ag is just 1. So, definitely heavy on the commercial real estate side, no doubt about it. But then, but you also got a good amount of residential real estate loans in there too, residential mortgages. So, and then the banking profile here at the very bottom, we could see like institutions in the market, and they have like New York, Newark, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Camden, Wilmington, Pittsburgh, Reading, Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton area. And then we see like the distributions here. So banks, under 100 million, there's 9 institutions, which is 7.4%. Then we get banks 100 to 250 million is 17. 250 million to 1 billion, 51 institutions, and then 1 billion to 10 billion, 37. And then over 10 billion, you got 8 institutions. So again, and I think this is probably very typical of many states out there. If you look at it, I mean, where the bulk of your banks are going to be in that 250 million to 10 billion range. Here we've got 88 banks that fall into that range. I mean which is 70, about 72% of all the banks in PA fall into that under, basically that 250 million to 10 billion range. But then almost all the banks in PA fall under. You take 7% of the banks in PA are over 10 billion. So again, the bulk of the banks are under that 10 billion threshold, but yet probably the 8 banks over the 10 billion probably hold 70% of all the assets in terms of loans and deposits and stuff. So it's very, but again, but I think that's a very typical kind of profile, if you will, of a lot of states, if not most of the states in the U.S., how that breaks down. But I just love this. I love this because it's very straight. It's very straightforward. It's very simplistic. It's just a 1-page report. It gives you a great breakdown of where everything's at. And if you needed this, if you sit on, if you're in an executive position, or maybe you're a lender, or you work in the credit department at your bank, and maybe you're just working on some analysis or trying to crunch some data just to see maybe where you're at versus your peers. It's a great little sheet just for some quick benchmarking. Also could be great if you got to take something into the board real quick and just kind of give the board an idea again, very quickly of like, okay, here's this great sheet. You can kind of see where the average banks are in the state of PA, and then here's where we're at. So again, it's just, I think it's a great tool. And like I said, anybody can use this. Again, if we go back to the website here, the main page, you can look up, you can go to any state in the country, pull this up, check it out, and see what's there. So again, I love this report, and it comes out, like I said, it's updated on a quarterly basis. Great little tool that's out there. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, please do. And like I said, I will put a link to this in the description below. And that's all I got for you this episode. So if you like this, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Please check us out on YouTube, Rumble, and all the major podcast platforms. And leave your comments down below. And I will be back to see everybody again real soon. Thanks a lot.